Let's go to the agenda. Okay. Yeah, I heard from several people who can't make it today to this event. David McKay, good. So in many ways, we'll be preaching to the choir, but
You know, that's what I was going to say. With this group, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but
yeah.
that's okay. We're going to cover it anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. Information is only good when you give it away.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Susan's making it. Yay. Well, Connie, you're the driver in this event, so you let me know. The like I said, the recording is running,
So I think
and
we will go ahead and get started. And I want to say welcome to everybody. Thank you for taking the time to attend today's event. I'm Connie Farrell. I'm the chair of the Tax Advocacy Committee. And so a couple things we're going to go over today is what the committee does for members and how to participate. So CSEA's legislative mission is to ensure that enrolled agents' right to practice remains unimpeded by state legislation and to ensure fair administration of the state tax laws. CSEA's Tax Advocacy Committee, TAC, is tasked with carrying out this mission. Two premier events that are held annually are STALM, the State Tax Agency Liaison Meeting, and Stern-Mulak Advocacy Week. With the STALM, we meet with all the state tax agencies, FTB, EDD, CDTFA, and SOS. And recently, BOE has been included and hope to include OTA at some point. The Stern-Mulak Advocacy Week is the time that we meet with the state legislators, probably virtually again this year. Maybe someday we'll be able to return back to the Capitol. Throughout the year, TAC addresses legislative issues and works the state tax agencies to help improve services and get problems resolved for members. This partnership is invaluable and has been cultivated over many years. So what does TAC do for CSEA members? Our work is comprehensive and we do the research, develop the message, provide the facts, the materials, and help schedule appointments. It doesn't get much easier than that. The committee helps identify issues with the help of our lobbyist, Jennifer Tannehill. She'll go into some more details on some of the current information in a little bit. Based on gathered feedback, TAC narrows down the list of issues to no more than 3 per year. Too many issues dilute the impact of each one. 3 allows us to focus on what is immediately important and relevant. We do the background search to find out who the legislators are, their record and general philosophy, the issues they're enthusiastic about, the committees that the legislators are on, and is the legislator newly elected or more senior? When it comes to the Stern-Mulak Advocacy Week, TAC identifies the legislators who are the chair or vice chairs or members on key committees, including Assembly Rev and Tax, Senate Governance and Finance, and there are committees that will evaluate, review, and vote on new legislation on any proposed changes to existing legislation. Typically, we do not have enough participants to meet with all the legislators, so this is a targeted approach, allows the most influential legislators to hear our concerns. District visits, however, are the opportunity for our members to reach out to their own legislators and make them aware of CSEA's and your concerns. The CSEA will provide you with the message, and you still need to sell it. We give you a lot of talking points and a lot of information to be able to convey the message. But we emphasize that you make the message your own, you know the facts, and be positive. And we give you tips for general message delivery. It can be by letters, phone calls, or in-person meeting or Zoom meetings, but the members are the ones that need to deliver the message. You can decide on the method of communication that's best to convey your issues. Your legislator may take specific action or respond to a request. Make your priorities clear. Messages should be targeted and forceful, never rude or threatening. Effective meetings are intended for the members to attend and speak to legislators, whether it's at the district visit or at Stern MULAC Advocacy Week. Decide who you want to accompany with you to deliver your message, preferably someone from the district. And limit the number of people that you bring with you to a district visit. 3 is a good number. You might schedule an appointment with them and let them know what the issues are, and then follow up to make sure that the schedule is in place. You're going to carefully ensure that you'll be there on time, but not too early. And make sure you have short, concise, and consistent information to leave behind. The TAC committee puts together a packet of information for you to leave behind with the legislators. And after the meeting, we recommend that you send a thank you note to the staff and the legislator, and then maybe we wait for 3 or 4 weeks for a response. So the district visits that we're hoping to do in November this year, we try to make it easy, easier, and easiest. We give you tips for connecting. We will help set up meetings if that's your preference. However, as a member, you're able to, as a member and a constituent, you should be able to set up a meeting with your legislators on your own at any time. And then be sure to follow up and ask the staff or the legislators if they have any questions or if they have any issues that they would like to give to you. Remember, we're doing the visits, offering our services. We're usually not there to ask for any help with anything. So that's a little bit about the district visits, and that's really what this town hall is about today, is to just do some training on what to do for the in-person or Zoom meetings with local legislators. The legislators are usually in their offices in the summer, and they're usually in the offices on Fridays. So in the past, I've done some local visits, and we would pick a day and we'd set up meetings with maybe 3 or 4 different legislators. Not that I was constituents of each one, but we would go visit several different offices and visit with staff, legislators if they were there, leave behind a packet, and offer our services. It's a very rewarding opportunity to be able to meet your legislator. Remember that once the legislator is elected, they represent everybody in their district, not just for the people that might have voted for them. So as a constituent, it's really important to let legislators know about CSEA, what we do, and that we're there to offer some services for them. So those are 2 ways to participate in TAC. One is the attending the Stern MULAC Advocacy Week, and the other is the local district visits that we're planning to set up in November. So we're really hoping that everybody on the meeting today might have an opportunity to meet with their local legislators and just feel a little more comfortable about meeting with them after the presentations today. So we're going to move on to the legislative update. We have Jennifer Tannehill from Aaron Reed and Associates, and she's going to give us a more information on the grassroots advocacy and some of the current legislations that's going on, and then some more information about our November event. So Jennifer, it's all yours.
Thanks, Connie. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to be here this morning. And want to give you a little bit of a legislative update, kind of what's going on in the legislature right now and this year. As Joyce touched on at the very, very beginning of the call, like before it's actually started, there's a lot of concern and confusion and cuts that are possibly coming from the federal government. That they're estimating about $16 billion right now. But really the focus right now in the legislature is on the May revise. The governor just released his May revision of the state budget that he proposed in January. He just did this week, and this is something that happens annually every May. So the governor can adjust projections that based on the revenue that we received in April tax filings. So the state is looking at a $12 billion deficit. The legislature and governor overpromised, among other things, Medi-Cal benefits. And they expanded eligibility to cover undocumented immigrants. And costs were about $6 billion over projections. And for those who may remember, the last few years we've had some deficits that we've been dealing with. The governor and legislature are really using the opportunity to punt all of the problems onto what they're terming as the Trump slump. That the tariffs and the changes that are going on at the federal level are the budget problems. You might not want to believe all of that. They're definitely going to contribute to our budget problems, but we have had billion-dollar deficits now for several years. And this $6 billion over projections for Medi-Cal, because we expanded eligibility to other people to participate in the program, is one of those things that California really needs to own. Also, as I mentioned, federal uncertainty, the governor expects most cuts to come to Medicaid and higher education programs. So he's proposed more funding to the UCs and CSUs and proposed some reductions in the Medi-Cal space to curb costs. As far as policy goes, there were over 2,500 bills introduced this year that Joyce and I combed through and were looking at and trying to figure out which ones had the most impact for CSEA this year. The bills have passed through their first policy committees in April and are now really in the appropriations committees in either house, where the bills are going to be analyzed for cost and how they work with the majority party's agenda. Next Friday, the appropriations committees will read the lists of bills that are allowed to live, called the suspense file hearing. And so any bill that costs over $150,000 to implement goes to what's called the suspense file, where it's kind of put on hold, and it gives leadership, Senate Pro Tem, Assembly Speaker, and the Appropriations Committee chairs the ability to figure out, kind of sort through and decide which ones are going to live and which are going to die. And that happens, they're going to announce the outcomes of those decisions next Friday, I believe. So that's where we're headed. And then that determines if a bill is going to continue on through the process or if it's dead for the year. So it's kind of a pins and needles time for everybody in the legislature. And it really kind of is another big moment where we go, okay, now we have another little bit of a culling and we can see what the universe of bills is going forward. And so it's kind of a big moment in the legislature. CSEA has taken support positions on the legislature's date conformity bill, SB 711. And I really want to give props to CSEA because we beat the drum on tax conformity and how important it is at our Stern-Mulak legislative days annually. And conformity is a thing that is brought up. And because of our constant talking about it, it's one of those things that the legislature doesn't forget very easily, and they know that that's something they need to do something about. And so this year they introduced SB 711 which is the date conformity bill, and that bill is also in appropriations right now. So we're going to see if it makes it out, or given all of the uncertainty federally and our own deficits, if the legislature is going to have the gumption to move that. I've offered help to Senate Appropriations Committee, who's spearheading the bill, to see if they need any help with talking to the Speaker's office or the Pro Tem's office, or any of the leadership, to see if they need CSEA's support to get it through, or what he's really thinking right now, what their thinking is going to happen with it right now. So stay tuned on that. And then there's a bill we're also supporting to lower the e-file penalty to a flat $100 rather than based on a percentage. And that bill is SB 591. CSEA has joined a coalition with Caltax and others opposing a bill that would apply the False Claims Act to the tax code. And that bill is SB 799. And this would allow the Attorney General to prosecute violations of the tax code. And the bill is sponsored by the Attorney Office. It's really just a huge power grab. The AG's office does not have the expertise needed to enforce the tax code. Plus, you already have the tax agencies doing this. And the AG would require a whole new team of people to really do this enforcement. It's really doesn't make any sense. So there was quite a bit of outcry against this from a variety of tax groups, including CSEA. We joined the coalition opposing the bill because it would bring significant costs and just, over enforcement, over regulation. So successful in that the bill did not have enough votes to pass in Senate Rev and Tax Committee, but was granted reconsideration. So it can come up again for a vote in January, possibly, which is the second year, in the second year of the session. Because we are in the first year of the 2-year session, bills can be made what are called 2-year bills, and can come up for a vote in January if they get stuck along the way this year, in some cases, not in all. So that's a backdrop for CSEA advocacy efforts this spring, which leads us to the grassroots advocacy side of things. And you may be asking, what's grassroots advocacy really about? What is it? We have the advocacy, the direct advocacy that happens, in the Capitol and in Sacramento. And then we have the grassroots advocacy it is really individual CSEA members reaching out to legislators and advocating directly for CSEA priorities. Think of it as really the foundation to all of the advocacy work that's done on a daily basis in the state capitol and by your TAC leaders and lobbyists, me. One reason the daily work in the state capitol is successful is because of the grassroots efforts that happen. And so that's why it's really important for us to reach all of our CSEA members with the importance of this, and having a strong voice in the legislature, which determines how you're going to practice and if you're going to be regulated by yet another a state agency on top of how you're regulated federally, or really it impacts your ability to provide services to your clients. So the legislature knows CSEA consists of EAs from throughout the state and every legislative district, and that you vote. And so that's important to remind them of this constantly. and that's really where grassroots advocacy comes in. And really, you're the power behind your lobbyist and behind your TAC, the TAC committee. And you might ask, how does grassroots advocacy make it in my own practice? So grassroots, or in practice generally. So grassroots advocacy is impactful specifically because it reminds legislators that their policy work impacts real people in their districts that are going to vote for or against them. And it's where your power lies as a CSEA member. So by meeting a legislator in their district office, they can put a name to a face of a real enrolled agent in their hometown. They get to know you and the clients you serve and how you benefit the community and their constituents. And that way, when your lobbyist or TAC leaders engage in policy discussions or have specific asks like to support or oppose a bill, or we need specific amendments to a bill because otherwise it'll be impossible for the tax practitioner community to implement it. Legislators text there to that anyway. And so then they remember that they met real people in their district that do this work, and it really helps us and builds supports the efforts. So the legislators remember their decisions are making that they're making in Sacramento have a real impact in their district. So also by EA members attending Lobby Day in Sacramento, Sturm-Ulach Lobby Day, even virtually, as we've done in recent years, that is grassroots advocacy that impacts legislators as well. Has an impact when many different legislators and their staff hear the same message from EAs on one day. It creates a buzz as staff mention the meetings to one another, and there's staffers that have and legislators that have met with EAs, year after year, and they may move around and change, but then they remember that they know EAs. So it's kind of it's a good impactful thing that grassroots advocacy does for enrolled agents. So CSEA is going to hold a major grassroots advocacy event this November. And as Connie was touching on, a lot of times we've encouraged people to do grassroots advocacy, to go meet with their legislators in their districts. And I think this year the push is going to be really more organized, and we're going to set it up more like Sturm-Ulach Lobby Day, legislative day, so that there's some more structure to it, and I think we're going to have a better impact. It'll be more of a cohesive event for EAs to participate in, rather than them just kind of floating out on their own and kind of doing it on their own. So that's something to look forward to. And so it's a huge opportunity for EAs to meet their legislators or staff in the legislators' district offices. And it benefits your practice to be able to tell that you're meeting with their legislative representatives and advocating for them as taxpayers, so that they don't have such confusing tax requirements. And we try to mitigate that for them as much as possible. And so that's yet another service that you provide to your clients, and something that you can toot your horn about, and really kind of share with them that you're bringing value to them. November is a really great time to do this event this year, as legislators are out of session and they're going to be in their district offices in the fall rather than in Sacramento. So like Lobby Day, as I mentioned, you'll register for the Grassroots event on CSEA's website. Aaron Reed and Associates will request meetings with each one of your representatives in the district office that's closest to you. And CSEA will host a short orientation meeting via Zoom prior to your legislative meeting, where we'll go over talking points and we'll answer questions, and we'll really get you prepped for the meeting that you're going to have with your legislator. And then your legislator meetings will be in person, which is really cool, and it's great for them to see you in person in their districts. So that's something to look forward to. And then after the legislative meetings that Aaron Reed sets up for you, we'll have a happy hour debrief virtually, where we can discuss the highs and lows of the meetings and what improvements can be made to the event next year. And so it'll really be an easy, way to do this, I think, for CSEA members from around the state. And I think it's a really fun opportunity for folks. So it should be easy peasy this year. So we're hoping you all willing and able to participate, and we'll send out specific dates as we get a little bit closer and narrow those down for participating in this, and so that you can block on your calendars too and make time available. And it's also time that we have from this town hall to kind of build a bit of a buzz about this new event that we're going to do in the fall, and how get people excited to join it and participate and see kind of what comes of it. So that was really it for me. I'll kick it over back to Connie to talk about issues, unless you want to do, Connie, you want to do a short Q&A now? I can't hear you, Connie.
Muted, Connie.
So yes, this will be our opportunity for members to give us some input on some topics and that they might want to see addressed. And anything that you might want to see change in the tax community. So does anybody have any issues out there that that you think should be addressed with the California legislators?
Yeah, anything that's ever come up for you that's like, well, that's the way the law is and we can't change it, but it's really not working well. We love to hear those things and see if there's a way that we can get those fixed. And Joyce has her hand up. I don't know if.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in on this. I wanted to go back to the False Claims Act, because I think what's really interesting is under the False Claims Act, it's a whistleblower act, which means anybody can drop a dime on somebody that they believe has committed tax fraud. And why would they do that? Well, the IRS pays out rewards for people who file a 211, which is how you basically turn somebody into the IRS. And there's a process, and people may or may not get paid, but that's usually the motivation, unless it's a revenge kind of situation. But with the False Claims Act, anybody can turn somebody in, and they actually step into the shoes of the state tax agency. The state tax agency is given the option to join in or not. And the individual that turns people in stands to get some monetary reward depending on how the action goes. And this, in conjunction with giving the DA the authority to go after tax fraud, potentially without the tax agency involved, I think is probably as big a concern on that bill. So us taking a opposed position on that, we thought it was really, really important to do that. And it doesn't seem like it's going to survive, but we have to, wait for the process to finish.
Yeah, we have to stay alert. Thanks for elaborating on that, Joyce.
Yeah, I found it really interesting because I, of course, had to read up on it. But I also wanted to tie in the point that issues, you may not be able to think of anything right now, but there's plenty of time, because we use STALM, the State Tax Agency Liaison Meeting, to raise questions and issues. And we have the Taxpayer Bill of Rights with the FTB in early December. And then we do Jim's Stern-Mulak legislative event in January. And over the years, you will see things raised earlier in the year that don't get addressed, making their way through to the Stern-Mulak advocacy event. And we've had, from my own personal participation, you may recall that CSEA was actually ringing the bell on entities that failed to launch. People were getting duped into setting up corporations, and they'd pay somebody like $2,500 to set up an entity, and they had no idea what they were doing. The individual. So, oh, we'll do all, the company would do all the paperwork, file everything for you with the state for a mere $2,500. And now you're in business. You've got this business. And because people didn't know what they were doing, they didn't follow through with anything. But they wound up having to pay the annual tax. And what happens when you don't pay a tax? You get penalties and interest, and it continues to grow. Well, this is a while ago. I want to say back before 2010. CSEA was actively promoting the idea that something should be done for those entities that never do any business. They formed, but they never did any business. They should be allowed to somehow exit the system without having to pay, all those taxes. And for a while, we actually had the Taxpayer Advocate's Office at the FTB working administratively so that folks that fell into that category could file an offer and compromise. And it was kind of, it was above board, but it was kind of like, okay, you can't really get around it over this way, but we set it up so you kind of can slide through and get it taken care of doing an offer and compromise. And that's the power of grassroots advocacy. Because even though CSEA didn't ultimately get a bill passed for this, years later, other legislators picked it up, and you wound up with the administrative dissolution. Hello, we said it first. So
And it was efforts that made the legislature even know about it. We talked about it at Sturm-Mueller Legislative Day, and that was another issue that we had beat the drum about, that the legislature, that's why they started to care, was because of us putting it on their radar.
Yeah. And another issue that I've seen for, at least a decade is the 593 withholding issue, the withheld tax on a sale of real property in California. And yeah, there have been improvements made. It's not a perfect system by any means, but they know we're watching. Every year we bring it up practically. And like I said, they have made improvements, and they know we're watching. So we'll continue to push for more improvements on that. But my point on these issues is, you may not think of anything right now, but later on, if you find yourself saying, boy, this really irritates me when I have to deal with, this agency, if it's a systemic issue, if it's something that applies to, multiple taxpayers, yeah, if it's irritating, let us know. Because that means there's probably a real issue with either the way something is being implemented, or there's something in the legislation that maybe needs to be tweaked even. So that's my spiel. I will now fade into the background. Connie, I think John Wade has his hand up.
But Wade has something to say. Go ahead, Wade.
I'm just going to follow up. I was there with Jennifer and with Joyce when this issue was brought up before. Who are the two gentlemen? I guess they have to do with the funding and they said one of the problems with the aborted or stillborn corporations, entities, was that the state was carrying all those $800 franchise tax payments on the budget. And it took a lot of willpower for the state legislature to do this, because it magically made money that was on the balance sheet disappear, and it was a lot of money. Nobody wants to say, oh, that $8 billion, that $100 million in, collectibles that we have really does not exist. So that was a hard
Mhm.
pull. And that was a lot of work for Jennifer, for Aaron Reed, and for us. And um, it was rewarding. Um,
Yeah, it was. It was rewarding to see that fix because it was a heavy lift. Telling them all that money they thought they had on the books is non-existent. It's pretend. Don't do that. And they finally were willing to make some changes. So,
Yeah, it's not just going into the offices of legislators and annoying them during the first day of them being back. And AB, that was so much fun. Kim and I, when AB 5 came through at
uh,
Newsom's inauguration, we went to, there weren't very many of us. So, Larry said you can only go to see so many. So I decided I was going to go to a couple of dozen because I used to do a lot of cold calling and knocking on doors when I was younger. So I'm not real shy. And we had a great time. I think we went to 16 offices in the day. It was a hard pull, and it was fun. So if anybody wants to do this, man, it's the most fun that this group has. And as long as you've got the stomach for a little bit of rejection.
I don't, I gotta say, Wade, I don't think there's rejection anymore. Um, I've been doing this pretty much since I started, excuse me, in 2005. Okay. And one of the goals back then was to make sure that the legislature knew who EAs were. And I recall almost every meeting I went into. Do you know what an EA is? No. Okay, well, we'll tell you. Um, yes, thank you, David. He had to leave. Excuse me. And I couldn't tell you what year it changed, but I know now, and yes, it's 20 years later, but now I find that it's very rare that I have to explain what an EA is. And we are at a position where we're being asked as an organization, a professional organization that represents tax preparers. I'm so sorry. We are recognized
mhm.
as professionals and we are called upon for input. And so that is the other benefit to your profession, to what you do, what your credential does for you. Um, it's not a quick process. Sometimes it's a little faster than others, but it works.
Well, a lot of them are used to people coming in and asking for things, and we go in and say, we're here to help. We don't want anything from you. We are here when you need us. If you have issues with individuals or with law or whatever, we have people call us up. If we can help, we will. If it's about tax, and we'd love to help. And you know, different people. It was a busy day that day. One person, as we went in, and I recognized her because she's from Encinitas, near where I am, and her head of staff goes, "She's not in today. She was standing 3 feet from me," and we smiled and said, "Okay." Hey, that's a little bit of rejection, but that happens. It was funny, but anyway.
Well, I've been around a long time and I actually knew Jim Stern. And my father participated in the very first legislative days going to the Capitol. And,
Mhm.
back in those days, they had no idea what an enrolled agent is. And after doing this for so many years in a row, it is refreshing to walk into an office and the staff and everybody knows what an enrolled agent is. So we've come a long ways with the recognition of enrolled agents and the fact that we're there to help and we're there as a reference. And yeah, it is a lot of fun. I got to agree with Wade. I think I did, I don't know, 16 or 18 offices in one day myself, delivering packets and trying to say hello. And
Yeah, I think people are leery of doing these visits, maybe out of fear or, you know, anxiety. They don't know what to expect. These are regular people doing a job just like you are, and it's no different. Well, it's a little bit different, but it's not that much different than walking into a new doctor's office and introducing yourself and you know just making a connection. So there should be no fear.
So a couple other things that everybody can do is to sign up for your legislators newsletter. They usually have a monthly or, periodic newsletter that you can get by email. And so that's a good way to find out more about your legislator. Look at their
And follow them
website.
on social media too. They all have social media accounts now too.
That's right. I was going to come up to that too, but yeah, they've all got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find them on all your favorite social media platforms. But yeah, you get to know a little bit, look at their website, get to know a little bit about them. So if you do walk in to visit, if they're a duck hunter, you might find a connection there. If they're, children play sports, you might find a connection there. You find something on a personal level that you might be able to connect with them. Maybe they like to fish or, I mean, it could be anything. And walking into a legislator's office in Sacramento, you get a really good flavor of what their interests are. And so that kind of helps give you a little bit more of a connection too. And I recommend that you kind of dig in and find out a little bit about the legislator before you go visit to help you get that personal connection with them. And
Connie, I see Jay
what
has his
committees
hand up.
they're on, what their preferences are, what their emphasis is. That seems to help a little bit too.
I see
Got-
Jay has his hand raised.
Yes.
Hey,
Thank you, Joyce and Connie. Let me just start by thanking Jennifer for being here again. I love when she comes and talks about legislation. I don't know if I'm just geeky that way, or I wish more people were on this call than just the few of us. And I want to just comment on Joyce's the fear, or when I started, it was always the biggest hurdle was to get in a session and the fear of not knowing what the issue was, right? Not knowing how to explain it, or feeling out of place, or you know just not knowing how the bill moves from one to the next. And I want to tell you, Jennifer, I think you need to can that spiel you had at the beginning about where it went from appropriations. And I think I commented to Joyce a couple years ago or last year about that's an important part of it, and how things move.
Mhm.
And I just think that's so important. I like that we're getting together now and talking about these things and about the issues. So then when it comes in November, we're not talking about the issue 15 minutes before I go to talk to someone. So that's hugely important. So
And I think too, my plan is to send out the biographies and the talking points and all of that ahead of time before the orientation. So people have a chance to familiarize themselves with it, so that when we do the orientation right before the event, well, they'll have come with questions and be able to know that. I think that'll cause some comfort. And to your point about the process, we can I can work with Joyce on creating a cool infographic that has like the legislative process, and see if that's something we want to put on the TAC website page, or send out to members, or I think it might be really good to have it too for this event. Thanks for mentioning it.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. And yeah, just having the issues beforehand, having for Joyce and Connie, having a meeting a month before to introduce, SB 711. That sounds like something we want to get some information and know know where we're at with that. Just that information is important, and then somehow get more people involved here. I think if we continue to educate people, we're going to get more people involved. Um, I was just gonna, as far as the issue goes, I think pass-through entity tax, I always have issues with that. I think I'll formulate some questions about pass-through entity, about payments and refunds, and that PTT is that's a nightmare to me. I wish that thing would just go away, but I'm sure we have some issues in there. And then nonprofits due date was yesterday. RRF ones are, I don't know if you guys do, with the Attorney General forms, but those are, it seems, I know you can file them electronically if you sign up as the entity, but there's some, I'd like those to be more, better process than having me print them and have the nonprofit officers that don't know anything about the process to file those. And they, I send it to them and they never file. And then try to get a hold of the Attorney General's office is completely impossible. So there might be something there as well. I don't know if we want to go in that path, but those are two issues I had on top of my mind, but more later. So thank you once again, Jennifer. Thank you for being here. You're important to this group, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree 100%. So I see we have a couple of people on the meeting here. Kathy, do you have any questions that you would like to ask, or any issues that you would like to raise? And how about Zachary? We haven't heard from Zachary. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to raise?
Nothing I'd like to raise. I just came more to just listen and learn what you guys do, and I'm glad I did. It's good to hear. I came because I heard Joyce speaking in the meeting for the Oregon board, and I was so happy with the advocacy that, I mean, California does an amazing job with advocacy for enrolled agents. I think better than just about any state organization. So I'm just happy to be here and happy to listen. Thanks.
Well, good. I hope you've sparked your interest to participate in some of our upcoming events here for the rest of the year.
Absolutely.
And Kathy, anything from you, any questions, any issues you'd like to bring up? Maybe Kathy's just listening in today. So let's see, Claudia, do you have anything?
I don't think I have any new issues. I do like what Jay had to say. That RRF1 does give us a lot of grief. So I would love to see that become a simpler filing process. The first time I participated in the Ledge Day, the Stern Day, was the year that we were trying to get the Franchise Tax Board and the Secretary of State to let us do the statement of information as a combined report instead of this alternative. But in spite of a lot of people saying, yeah, that's a good idea, it got squelched. I still think it's a good idea.
We ended up resolving that by working administratively with the Secretary of State's office to make some changes there. And I think that, and so if things are still a problem there with the statement of information, we can always revisit an issue if it hasn't been fully resolved. I'm totally up for doing that. It's always good stuff. Because we can say, hey, we gave it your way a shot for a while, but it's still not working. So let's try something else.
It is better. I agree that it's better than it was. But still every year when I do an entity return, I always go to the Secretary of State, see if they were late. Probably half of my clients, I swear, it'll say that they have not timely filed their statement of information. So I get on them to do it.
So Claudia, we set up a little spreadsheet and we take all of the entities and we check them periodically. We go in every few months and check. And so we've just set up a process where we file it for them, and charge them a fee, but it's been an added income stream to be able to do that. And so we just, like I said, we keep a folder in an Excel spreadsheet and we go in and check off all the entities and make sure that we, that they're up to date. And, we pay the $25 and then we turn around and charge them for it. And so that seems to have been worked out pretty well for us.
So it's a workaround. It's
It
still
is.
not government efficiency, but I do like your workaround.
Randy, do you have any issues or any questions for us?
No, the only comment was I like the peak tax. Definitely beneficial on my own return, so I don't want to see that go away. But I guess with the proposals, if they increase SALT to 30,000, I think the way that law is written, it will go away immediately unless it's reenacted.
Now, Randy, I didn't say I didn't like the tax. I said I don't like it when my client pays on January 20th and then we can't make the election. That's a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the good and evil, the good and the bad, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's our California workaround.
And Susan, do you have anything?
Nothing that hasn't been mentioned already, except the withholding on trusts and whatnot. We always have an issue getting that money back. It's a pain in the tutu.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have kind of a special relationship with all of our representatives and everything up here because of being the first lady and whatnot. I've been introduced and have an ongoing relationship with quite a few of them personally. So whenever I have an issue, I just call them up and go, hey, talk to me.
So you're talking about the FTB, the trust withholding on trusts through California FTB. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's they've made some changes, but not enough.
The last few I had to deal with took over a year to finally get the money back, and it was not a small amount either.
Oh gosh.
So Debbie, we'd like to hear from you.
So sorry, I don't know how I raised my hand. It just
Well, hi, Debbie.
I I will lower my hand.
Okay. All right.
Well, we heard from her.
And I see John Blayback was joined in. John, do you have any questions for us? Any issues you'd like to bring up?
Well, sorry, I probably have some. Just listening to some of the comments after tuning in late. Sorry about that.
All right, welcome.
Maybe for when we have the storm or all the tax agencies day, we could include the DOJ to cover some stuff on nonprofits for a future presentation. That might be helpful. I've run into some issues with them through the years. And since the Secretary of State no longer mails postcards, let alone the forms, and expects you to do it online, if you don't see it, people forget it. So I do periodically check my entity clients. However, I find the Secretary of State's new website is a lot more restricted than the old one. If all of this is public information, why do we have to ask the business permission to add it to my account to look at the public records that we used to be able to download? No problem.
Yeah, that would be good to get an answer for that one.
Well, I think the distinction is you can access it and see it, but to change it, there are issues with people going in and making changes to, fraudulently, and for nefarious reasons, and they're not wanting to allow just anybody to go in and make the changes, even if it's fine,
Yeah. Like
a statement of
yesterday,
information.
new client was here and do it yourself, set up your LLC, and he brought me all his stuff. And I says, "Where's your articles of organization?" I couldn't find him. I says, "Well, let's go to the Secretary of State and to see what you sent them, because that's the key document I'm going to need next year." So I go to their website, and for some reason my account was frozen or couldn't reset the password. Had to call them on the phone yesterday. That's all taken care of. So now I go to the site and I can just see the status, but I can't see the documents, let alone make changes, which I wouldn't want to do. I sort of remember the old system. You could see the documents. I wasn't aware you could actually make changes back then. I don't recall having done so.
John, I participate in the Secretary of State monthly
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
If you want to, maybe one day next week, I can jump on a call with you and look at what you're seeing, because my understanding is you should be able to see the documents. If you have a login, you should be able to see the documents. So
I was
if you,
going to say that too, Joyce, because I have a Biz Online account and I can see all the documents on any
yeah,
client I have.
yeah.
Well, this was as of yesterday. This was the new client. And until he gets his email and replies to it to say yes, then of course I can't see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Whereas under the old system, I could see it.
Yeah. Okay. I get you.
Yeah. So when I found out about the new system, I've slowly been getting clients like, just say yes to this. Think of it as an insurance policy. It's like, what Connie said last year, one client I discovered was months late in doing that. I called him and he was in the airport on the way to vacation, go somewhere for a couple months. And he said, "Do it, I'll pay you."
Yeah, I got tired of people bringing me the $250 penalty notice because it wasn't filed on time, and then get it in file and then ask for the penalty to be abated. And so we just said, hey, that's a whole new revenue stream. We can set it up and get it done for people, because obviously they're not paying attention.
Yeah, they don't get the postcards. And if they did, they get lost.
That's right. All right, so we've covered issues quite well, and we'll watch for any new bills or bills that are emerging that have issues that we might be interested in. So I think I'd like to just review a couple things that everyone can do to participate in the advocacy. You can attend your local chapter legislative affairs committee meetings if your chapter has one, and find out who the chair is, and maybe help them with relaying some of the messages to the members. Be sure to read CSEA's Week in the News for state legislative updates. Joyce does a great job of giving us the latest on some of the important legislation that's going on and where it is. Respond to the committee when we request input on issues that are affecting enrolled agents. You see things in your practice that we may not know about. So raise some of these issues to us. You can contact Joyce, myself, or Jennifer with any of the issues. Serve on the chapter advocacy committee, or consider volunteering for CSEA's advocacy committee or TAC committee. Talk about the legislative issues with your peers at meetings and any events that you're going to. Maybe consider writing a short article for your chapter newsletter about the advocacy. And then, be sure to participate in the state tax agency liaison meeting that we have every year. It's a great way to get issues presented to the state tax agencies. Be sure to attend STALM, and in January, we do our legislative advocacy week, and then participate in your local district visits. So there's lots of ways to get involved and to be informed, and be able to encourage your chapter members to get on board. It is fun, it is rewarding, and I believe it helps us practice be better and help us do a better job in our tax business just from knowing a lot of this information. So we do have a grassroots manual, and we have lots of CSEA support. I'm sure before we get to the November event with the local visits, that we will be sending out the Grassroots Effective Advocacy Guide. And it's got a lot of information that we covered today. And it's also got a lot of tidbits to help you get involved, get more familiar with the whole system, and the importance of why we do what we do. So does anybody have any other questions or concerns that you would like to bring up with us today? Wade?
Anyone who's here who hasn't done this, just remember, you go as a team. There are people who are willing to do point. You will have your time, you will learn, it will be fun, and you don't have to worry about, working without a net. So this is a, peer-to-peer supported effort. And it's probably one of the more rewarding things within the organization.
So it looks like Joyce has posted the the guide on the in the chat. So if you're interested in taking a look at the Grassroots Effective Advocacy Guide, it's posted to the chat in there. So Joyce.
Yeah, it's also on the CSEA website on the landing page for advocacy. You have to scroll down a bit, but today's town hall is in the middle of that landing page, and the link to the manual is there. And I'll be leaving that there until we have our event in November.
All right, very good. So everyone can have access to that information. I highly recommend that you get in and print one up for yourself and refer to it every once in a while.
Joyce, I don't see it in the chat. Did it go just to Connie, or did it go to everybody?
Oh, you're right. Son of a gun. Let me redo that. I wasn't paying attention.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yes.
I didn't catch that either.
Thank you. There it is. Did it go to everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's Friday.
It's Friday. We've come to the end of our agenda. If anybody has anything they'd like to bring up, now's the time. All right, it looks like everybody's good. Again, I want to thank everybody for attending today. We really appreciate your time. We really hope to make this November's local ledge visits an event not to miss, and that we can be very effective with our visits. And then be ready for this at Stern Mulak Advocacy Week in January. And it's just a good lead up to that event also. So if there's nothing else to bring up from anybody, we're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Have a wonderful Friday, everybody, and a great weekend. It looks like we're going to have some really nice weather here this weekend. So
thanks so much, Connie. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
right,
everyone.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Joyce.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye-bye.